Everyone is allowed an opinion. Doesn't matter how bonkers it might be. You're passionate, you have thoughts in your brain, and in 2018 there's plenty of ways to wear them. 9 times out of 10 you'll find someone to agree with you too, and that's it. You're on the track of love, and the destination is satisfaction. Not sure how that ties in, but it sounded nice. The point is, just because you think something should change doesn't mean WWE agrees with you, even though on paper it seems like they would. And you know what? There's reasons for this. That's right. As much as we may like to think Vince McMahon sits in some tower just yelling and shouting nonsense, that's not actually the case. He has a plan, even if said plan doesn't necessarily make sense to us. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is the 10 biggest fan complaints WWE don't actually want to fix. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to stay notified. Ding, ding, done. Number 10. The shows are too long. Yeah, they are. But WWE are a business, and you know what business loves more than anything? Money. Most of us know that, be it in or out of wrestling, less is more, and that it's quality over quantity, but that all goes out the window when your bottom line is on the up. This happens more than just the 3 hours of Raw we get each week too. Recently we had a 50-man Raw Rumble because, again, cold hard cash. There's a reason people say money talks. That's because it does. It would be mad for them to think otherwise, really. WWE has stockholders to keep happy, and also WWE Network numbers to use as promotional tools. The more content they can get up there, the more watch minutes they can rack up, and the happier everyone will be. April 2018 smashed such figures, and that's all because WWE kept pumping out content and we kept watching. Will this ever change? Maybe, but it won't be anytime soon given the new lay of the land when it comes to TV deals. Make sure that sofa is as comfortable as possible. Number 9. This match happened last week. The idea of a feud in WWE today is just weird. I mean, we don't really get the big build to a singles match on pay-per-view anymore, and it's rare to get a true, well-balanced, projected series of fights. Instead, it's more like we get the same match over and over again as wrestlers trade wins until they move on to somebody else. This kind of ties into list entry number 10, as it does fill those precious TV minutes, but the result is a bunch of dudes stuck in the mid-card who rinse, wash and repeat almost constantly. For example, Elias and Bobby Roode fought 4 times in single matches throughout April and May 2018, with the Qatar man emerging from the contest 3-1 up. It didn't help at all, and there was no reason for them throwing punches in the first place. They just did it because someone told them to. Roode too pretty much stayed in the same place because, again, they just wrestled and then they wrestled and they wrestled and finally they wrestled, as they will again before the end of the year, because that's what we do. There's every chance someone comes along soon that wins over the chairman of the board and they get a proper push, but I don't think that's on the cards anytime soon. Number 8. Are they heel or are they face? I get that shades of grey are amazing, but shades of grey are meant to represent how the real world works, and few people do brave heroic acts one week and then behave like morons the next. That is just ridiculous. And if we look at WWE TV recently, it's all over the place, with Bobby Roode switching on a dime and Nia Jax unable to make up her mind. At one point she was teaming up with Stephanie McMahon and getting insulted by her, before flipping again 7 days later when she felt sad that she beat up Natty Neidhart even though she's meant to be a monster. Before that, she was an advocate for anti-bullying, so you tell me. Aside from being illogical, it's impossible to keep up with performers that change so often or try and figure out what's next. One would guess WWE does this because it's just easy in the grand scheme of things. You don't really have to take stock what happened a few weeks earlier. It's just weird. Just make someone a good guy or a bad guy, and if you want to tinker with that, take your time and make it happen. Don't just invent stuff as you go. Number 7. Well, that's not very ethical. For whatever you think of WWE's event known as the Greatest Raw Rumble, there's 2 things that are pretty obvious. The first is that they did it because they got paid loads of cash. The more worrying one was the black mark it left on the women's revolution. As it was in Saudi Arabia, the females on the roster simply weren't allowed to make the trip, and that's a difficult thing to take in 2018. It would have been bad 100 years ago, but today it's mind-boggling, especially after the lengths they've all gone to in order to reverse any of the madness we saw during the Attitude Era. And yeah, while you can say WWE did this to try and help push things in that country forward, you also have to be fair and admit that money played a huge role, because of course it did. We don't know the figure, but rumours suggest it was a wild sum, but as the entry said, that's not very ethical now, is it? It's wrestling though, and we could go on about that forever. Number 6, the WWE Network is crap. I don't think the WWE Network is crap. The fact you can access it and be greeted with thousands of hours from old shows makes me genuinely happy, because I can remember a time when I had to record them all on VHS tape. This system is far better. The problem with it is that the back end can be a nightmare to try and use. For example, if you want to try and find anything, half the time the search doesn't work. This was fine when it first launched, but we're years in now. That makes no sense, and nor do those chapter markers WWE has added. On paper they sound great, but sometimes you jump to that point and the description doesn't match up with what you're seeing. It's not a big deal, but it can at least raise an eyebrow. I'm sure at some point the company wants to address this too, but given numbers are steady and no one new is going to sign up just because they tidied it up a bit, well, it's going to feel like a waste of time, isn't it? Number 5, that finish was rubbish. I will always say that no matter how a match goes or what the finish is, I respect the hell out of wrestlers. That nonsense is so hard, it's amazing they can even do it day in, day out. However, that doesn't mean we can't put our Booker hat on from time to time and try and figure out what we've just seen. Half the fun of wrestling in 2018, and they're moaning on the internet. It's fair to say then that as of late, WWE has relied on similar ends to matches, be that roll-ups from nowhere distractions, or the exact same move being the final blow in different matches on the same card. There's nothing wrong with doing these as and when, but constantly, well, it just gets a bit much. Jim Cornette used to say that everything in wrestling has a 7-year sell-by date, be that major angles, storylines, or matches, and after this, these old tricks will be seen as brand new illusions. That doesn't work if you're doing the same thing all the time. This one is a little harder to figure out in terms of why WWE doesn't want to try and fix it. Probably because the aforementioned roll-up is an easy way to get out of a contest without anyone really losing. Can put heat on the dastardly heel, let the babyface hold their head high. It's the fans' attention span that takes a hit. You can only see the same thing so many times before you want to punch yourself. Number 4, Roman Reigns sucks. He really doesn't. If we're talking just as a pro wrestler, Reigns is really good and I will stand by that. When looking at his work in the ring, there's no wonder he's near the top of the card. The big dog can go. At this stage though, it's just become a thing. People still think he never loses, even though this year he's lost twice to Brock Lesnar and got dumped out the Royal Rumble by Shinsuke Nakamura. The problem, as we know, is that WWE are going to keep pushing him as a face until we're all dead, and that's not helping anyone. The audience have turned their back on him, whether that's right or wrong, and Vince McMahon's refusal to change has become a little bit of an issue. It is this stubbornness why WWE won't budge, however. They think they know best and will ram this home until it works. It won't work, but again, that's the problem. It's why we should at least be pleased Roman is a good wrestler. Imagine him getting this treatment and being awful when he got in the squared circle. Believe you me, that would be awful and it would make you cry. And do you want to cry? No, you do not. Number 3, where's a PYRO? Well, it's at WrestleMania and in Saudi Arabia. I definitely saw it there. But otherwise, WWE has decided fireworks weren't worth the money they cost and scrapped them entirely aside from the odd special event. Company only have themselves to blame, really. They were so liberal in using them during the Attitude Era they became as common as a body slam. And seeing a wrestler struck to the ring with pyro going off like it was going out of fashion was great. Think of Brock Lesnar or Kane's entrances without the big bang. They would, and do, suck a little bit. Could these come back thanks to the new WWE TV deals? Maybe. But if we don't need them, and that's been proved the last couple of years, why go back now? It's an aesthetic addition only and it makes no difference. I wouldn't hold your breath. Mostly because if you do that, you'll die. Number 2, they were better in NXT. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. But whatever the case, WWE doesn't care, as the main roster is aimed at a totally different demographic to that of NXT, therefore there's no correlation as far as they're concerned. It is fair there should be more thought put into a lot of call-ups in the sense there doesn't ever seem to be a plan in place, despite being told there would always be a plan in place. But then we look at the authors of Pain or No Way Jose, and as of recording these words, they would have been far better off staying back down in developmental, because right now, they're doing nothing. Ultimately though, WWE has hours that need to be filled and they need bodies to do that, be that for Raw, SmackDown or main event. Even success stories like Asuka usually hit some sort of iceberg, like when she lost her undefeated streak, and when that's gone, it's gone forever. No one ever really seems to think about it beforehand. As for the likes of the Revival, well, that's anybody's guess. One of the best tag teams in years, they're floating through the abyss at the moment. I suppose it's because Vince McMahon doesn't like tag teams, and there's a video on the channel about that you can watch right now. Cheap plug. Number 1, he's never here. Until recently, I didn't mind that Brock Lesnar, the Universal Champion, wasn't on Raw. I agreed with the argument that it made him special, and I thought for a time it made the title feel the same way. We're past that point now though, and the belt needs to be back on Monday nights. This has nothing to do with the supposed perks the Beast gets either. I don't care about that. If he gets paid more and a blind eye is turned here and there, it makes no difference to me. The only focus is that Universal title and the fact it needs to be made the centerpiece of Raw as quickly as possible. Sometimes I forget it even exists. Really, Brock's time in the sun has just passed. It's the same with all performers and it just so happens to have caught up with Lesnar's current character. He needs a tweak here or there and that's not going to happen when he doesn't even appear on television. It works for WWE of course because it's the deal they have with him. Not going to rock that boat. But as fans, it's time to move on from this. So let's just hope that happens soon. Otherwise, we're all going to be in the grave before this goes down. And that's morbid, and I don't want it.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe below, and if you're looking for more content like this, then try a few things that are floating about around my ears. It might be fun. I can't promise it though, but it might be.